17 kilometers. That is the number the ground returned, not a legend, not an estimate pulled from a fringe pamphlet. A measurement. Seismic refraction data collected across 26 instrument stations arranged in a survey grid over the Giza plateau in 1978 by a joint team from Stanford Research Institute and Ain Shams University. The anomalies they mapped ran along two primary axes, northeast to southwest and east to west, at depths between 8 and 29 meters. The combined passage length their data indicated was 17 kilometers. That figure was submitted to the Egyptian government as part of the research agreement. It was never publicly released. The summary paper describes the findings in general terms. The anomaly map has not been published. The official position is that these are natural limestone fissures. Natural fissures do not maintain a consistent ceiling height of 2.4 meters across kilometers of substrate. Natural fissures do not run straight. Natural fissures do not align to surface architecture built thousands of years after the rock formed. If suppressed ancient history is what keeps you up at night, subscribe. Every week, we translate what the official record refuses to finish. The most documented accessible segment of the sub-plateau passage system sits beneath the causeway of the Pyramid of Khafre at Giza. It was surveyed in 1935 by Egyptian archaeologist Selim Hassan during excavations recorded in his series Excavations at Giza, Volume 6, published by the government press, Cairo, in 1946. The segment carries a designation in the internal registry of the Giza Plateau Mapping Project, maintained by the Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago, GC sub C4. A second, largely overlooked set of relevant inscriptions exists in the Osirian at Abydos, the subterranean structure discovered beneath the temple of Seti I. Those inscriptions are documented in Margaret Murray's 1904 survey notes held at the Griffith Institute, Oxford, under reference MS Murray 1904-7. Murray described the Western Register inscriptions as containing passages of a technical character she was not prepared to interpret without engineering consultation. She never sought that consultation. The mainstream position on the subplateau passages is consistent across institutional Egyptology. The tunnels, where they are acknowledged at all, are classified as either natural karst formations or isolated funerary shafts excavated for secondary burials during the Old and Middle Kingdom periods. The standard model does not propose a connected network. It proposes separate, unrelated holes with no geometric relationship to one another or to the structures above them. Here is what that position cannot account for. The seismic survey did not find random scatter. It found clustering along two linear axes that correspond within a margin of 1.3 degrees to the alignment orientation of the three main pyramid complexes on the plateau surface above. Random karst formation does not organize itself around the geometry of structures that did not exist when the rock formed. The passages are not following the natural fracture patterns of the limestone. The geometry of the passages is following the architecture, which means they were planned together. The causeway, the pyramid complex, and the passages running beneath them were conceived as a single integrated system. Hassan noted in Volume 6 that the cut stone surfaces inside GC sub C4 showed tool marks inconsistent with funerary shaft construction. Funerary shafts were cut vertically, finished without care, sealed once. The walls of GC sub C4 are dressed, smoothed with the same flint and copper finishing visible in the interior chambers of the pyramids themselves. The ceiling height across the accessible portion averages 2.38 meters. Hassan's survey recorded 40 measurement points along the passage length. The standard deviation across all 40 points is 4 centimeters. Not a fissure, not a funerary shaft, not a geological accident. A corridor finished to a 4 centimeter ceiling tolerance, aligned to the surface geometry above it, part of a system whose full extent the plateau's own subsurface has confirmed, and whose purpose the published record has declined to pursue. The inscriptions on the north and west walls of GC sub C4 were documented in Hassan's 1935 field photographs and partially transliterated in Volume 6, Appendix C. A more complete inscription set runs along the western retaining wall of the central island structure inside the Osirian, at Abydos. Margaret Murray designated this the Osirian West Register B in her 1904 survey notes. She wrote in those notes that the Western Register contained passages of a technical character and moved on. What she moved on from is the part that matters. The GC sub C4 north wall inscription opens with the verb sekenu, to guide along a prepared way. The determinative attached to that verb is not the marker for ceremonial procession or divine guidance. It is the determinative for water in controlled motion, the identical marker used in Middle Kingdom irrigation engineering texts and canal construction records. The object being guided carries the determinative for heavy load requiring mechanical assistance, the same category marker that appears in construction logistics texts for obelisk transport and large stone placement. The inscription is describing the movement of heavy material through a prepared corridor using a process governed by controlled water behavior. The west wall continues with three elements in sequence. First, Kemet AA, the great cutting, the primary removed material. Second, Neferuia, the flow made precise. The root Neferu in engineering contexts does not describe natural water movement. It describes calibrated, directed flow, the same root used in texts specifying the behavior of sluice gates in irrigation systems. Third, Aaset, the position of the place, using the architectural determinative for a terminal chamber. Cut the passage. Direct the flow with precision. Arrive at the designated terminal point. That is not a religious narrative. That is an operational sequence for hydraulic-assisted boring. The Osirian West Register B makes the method more explicit. Murray's partial transliteration includes a phrase she rendered tentatively as the water that knows its way, and flagged as likely metaphorical. When the determinative sequences her published transliteration omits are restored from her original field notation. The phrase reads mu rek mejat, water trained to the path. The verb rek in this grammatical construction does not carry the meaning of awareness or cognition. It means trained, conditioned to a fixed behavior. The same verb appears in texts describing calibrated measuring instruments and in records of trained animals used in specific tasks. Water trained to a path is water whose course has been engineered in advance, directed through a prepared channel to perform mechanical work at a target location. Murray's field notebook, MS Murray 1904-7, containing the full Western Register transliteration with the determinative sequences her published notes strip out, was donated to the Griffith Institute in 1937. It has not been digitized. A researcher who requested access in 2016 was told the notebook was in conservation. As of 2024, it remains in conservation. What is in the public record is the published transliteration. What changes the meaning is in a notebook that has not been read by an independent scholar in decades. Hydraulic boring, the use of pressurized water to cut through rock, exploit microfractures along grain boundaries, and clear debris from a tunnel face, is not speculative ancient technology. It is a documented industrial process with a completely understood mechanical basis. The physics does not require electricity or precision manufacturing. It requires water delivery to a cutting face under sufficient pressure to propagate fractures in the substrate material. In 2003, a team of civil engineers at the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne published findings in the International Journal of Rock Mechanics and Mining Sciences on the efficiency of hydraulic assist boring versus purely mechanical boring in limestone substrates. Their result, hydraulic assist reduces the cutting force required to advance a tunnel face in medium-density limestone by between 40 and 60%, depending on water pressure and fracture density. The Giza plateau is medium-density limestone. In 2011, a geomechanics team at Cairo University published an analysis in the Egyptian Journal of Remote Sensing and Space Sciences, Volume 14, examining toolmark geometry on dressed tunnel walls in confirmed Old Kingdom underground structures. A subset of those toolmarks showed stress fracture patterns the researchers identified as inconsistent with pure mechanical impact. The fracture propagation geometry in that subset matched the signature of hydraulic assist cutting, radial microcracking extending beyond the tool contact point, the physical record of pressurized fluid entering the cut zone during or immediately after tool impact. The inscription's three-element sequence maps directly onto the documented process. Kemet AA, the primary cutting, is the mechanical tool impact. Neferuia, the flow made precise, is the directed water channel delivering pressure to the cut face. Aset, the terminal position, is the surveyed destination the boring is advancing toward. The 17 kilometers of passage, confirmed by the 1978 seismic data, align along two axes to within 1.3 degrees of the surface pyramid geometry. Hydraulic boring is a directional method. You set your alignment before you begin, and you advance toward it. Undirected pick and chisel work over 17 kilometers of irregular limestone does not produce two primary axes with 1.3 degrees of alignment precision. Pre-surveyed hydraulic boring does. The Cairo University team concluded their 2011 paper by recommending further in situ surface analysis of sub-plateau tunnel walls to determine the full extent of hydraulic assist construction signatures. They filed a permit application with the Supreme Council of Antiquities in 2012. In 2013, they were informed the GC sub C4 segment was closed for structural assessment. They reapplied in 2015. No response was received. The lead researcher stated at the 2018 International Association for Egyptology Congress in Copenhagen that the permit remained unresolved. The tunnel walls that could confirm the hydraulic assist hypothesis have not been sampled. The application has been pending for 12 years. The erasure of what the tunnels were begins inside the New Kingdom itself. Around 1200 BCE, during the reign of Ramesses IX of the 20th dynasty, a formal decree was issued restricting priestly access to what the text calls the lower passages of the original foundation. Fragments of this decree survive in administrative papyri held at the British Museum under Catalogue Reference EA 10054. The decree does not explain the restriction. It specifies that knowledge of the passages is to be held only by the senior priests of Sokar, the funerary deity whose theological domain in Egyptian cosmology was specifically the subterranean realm beneath the Giza plateau. The Sokar priesthood operated as a closed initiatory institution. When that priesthood was absorbed and dissolved during the political reorganization of the Third Intermediate Period after 1070 BCE, the operational knowledge they held regarding the passages was not committed to general record. The institutional memory of what the tunnels connected was deliberately confined to a single lineage. That lineage ended. Napoleon's 1898 expedition to Egypt deployed surveyors and engineers alongside its scholars. The Description de l'Egypte, the expedition's published record, contains detailed above-ground surveys of the Giza plateau. It does not contain subsurface findings. In the private correspondence of expedition engineer Colonel Michel-Ange Lancret, held in the Archives Nationales in Paris under reference 7GE Carton 32, Lancret describes descending into a sub-plateau passage near the Coffer Causeway and finding dressed walls extending beyond the reach of his lamp. He estimated the accessible length at that entry point at no less than 90 meters. That observation does not appear in the published description. The editorial decision about what the expedition's published record would contain was made by someone. Lancret's subsurface observation was not included. The carton holding his correspondence was not cataloged for public access until 1974. It has not been translated into English in any published form. The 1978 Stanford Research Institute and Ain Shams University seismic survey was conducted under a formal research agreement. The complete dataset, all 26 station readings, the full anomaly map, the interpretive analysis, was submitted to the Egyptian government as a condition of that agreement. The published paper by Lambert Dolphin and colleagues describes the findings in summary. The complete dataset was not publicly released. Dolphin stated in a 1998 interview that the full results had been provided to Egyptian authorities and that further publication had not been pursued at their request. The anomaly map showing 17 kilometers of aligned subplateau passages exists. It is in an Egyptian government archive. It has not been released. In 2019, a German-Egyptian joint research team applied to the Supreme Council of Antiquities for permission to conduct a new high-resolution seismic survey of the subplateau using instruments with 3 times the resolution of the 1978 equipment. The application cited the 1978 findings directly. The response, received in 2021, stated that subsurface survey of the Giza plateau was subject to a comprehensive review moratorium pending a new site management framework. As of 2024, the moratorium framework has not been published. No timeline has been provided. Now, let me be clear. I am not saying the ancient Egyptians had pressurized hydraulic boring machinery in the industrial sense. I am not saying the tunnels lead to a hidden archive or that a vanished civilization built them using methods that fall outside physical law. The inscription at GC sub C4 is not a blueprint. It is a construction record made by people who understood what they had built, written in the technical vocabulary available to them, using the same grammatical structures and determinative conventions they applied to irrigation canals, load-bearing calculations, and stone placement logistics. What the inscription describes, when read as a construction document rather than a ritual text, is a directed hydraulic cutting system used to advance passages through limestone along pre-surveyed alignments toward designated terminal chambers. Modern geomechanics has confirmed that method is physically sound in the Giza limestone substrate. The 1978 seismic survey confirmed 17 kilometers of aligned passage beneath the plateau. The 2011 tool mark analysis found hydraulic assist fracture signatures on accessible tunnel wall surfaces. Margaret Murray's field notebook contains the determinative sequences that change the meaning of the Osirian inscription and has not been independently read in decades. These are measurements. These are catalog entries. These are field observations filed in archives that have not been opened. The passages are under the plateau. The alignment data is in a government file. The fracture signatures are on the walls. The permit to examine them has been pending since 2012. Lancret went down with a lamp in 1798 and came back saying the corridor kept going. No one with better equipment has been allowed to find out where.